That was how it began for Clara Bennett, under golden chandeliers and the hum of carefully curated elegance at Colford Estate. Clara had built her reputation on composure. After her public heartbreak a year ago, she had promised herself two things: never mix business with emotion and never allow a charming stranger to unbalance her again. As the lead event planner for the estate's grand reopening gala, she moved through the ballroom like a conductor, adjusting floral placements, whispering instructions into her headset, ensuring every detail whispered perfection. But perfection is fragile. A minor crisis with the lighting sent her hurrying toward the terrace corridor in search of the technician. The hallway was dim, quieter than the glittering ballroom beyond it. In her haste, her heel caught against the carpet's edge. She didn't fall, because someone caught her. A firm hand steadied her waist. Another caught her trembling fingers before they hit the marble floor. "Careful," a calm, low voice murmured. Clara looked up into unfamiliar eyes, steady, observant, holding a hint of amusement. He wore a tailored black suit, simple but expensive. Not flashy. Intentional. "I'm fine," she insisted, though her pulse disagreed. "Of course you are," he replied smoothly. "You look like someone who never drops anything." The air between them shifted, charged, curious. For a suspended moment, the gala faded. She became aware only of his hand still at her side and the surprising warmth it carried. Then he stepped back as if aware he'd crossed an invisible line. "I hope the rest of your night runs smoothly," he said, offering a half-smile that lingered longer than politeness required. Before she could ask his name, he disappeared into the glow of the ballroom. And Clara, steady and professional Clara, found herself wondering why a stranger's touch felt less accidental than destiny. The evening refused to return to normal after that brief encounter. Though Clara Bennett resumed her steady rhythm, checking the catering stations, confirming the auction items, smoothing over minor guest complaints, her thoughts drifted toward the stranger with a quiet confidence. She told herself it was irritation. Curiosity. Nothing more. But curiosity has a pulse. Just as the mayor stepped up to deliver his keynote speech, the chandeliers flickered. A soft murmur swept through the ballroom. Then everything went dark. Gasps followed. A glass shattered somewhere near the bar. Clara's instincts took over instantly. "Stay calm, everyone," she called out, already moving toward the emergency panel she'd memorized earlier that afternoon. The darkness felt thicker in the hallway, swallowing shapes and shadows alike. She quickened her pace, until a hand gently but firmly pulled her back against the wall. "Easy," that same calm voice whispered close to her ear. "There's broken glass ahead." Her breath caught. Even without light, she recognized the steadiness in his tone. The way his presence felt deliberate, not accidental. "I can manage," she whispered back, though her hands instinctively found his jacket sleeve. "I know you can," he replied softly. For a suspended heartbeat, neither moved. The world felt reduced to the warmth of shared breath and the distant murmur of unsettled guests. Then, without warning yet without force, he leaned in. The kiss was brief, soft but certain. Not rushed. Not careless. It held intention, like a promise spoken without words. Clara froze, stunned not by offense but by recognition, something deeper than surprise. The emergency lights flickered back on, pale and steady. She stared at him, her voice barely more than air. "You kissed me?" His gaze didn't waver. If anything, it deepened. "I'll do it again," he promised quietly. And before she could gather herself, or demand answers, he stepped back into the now bright corridor and disappeared into the returning noise of the gala, leaving Clara standing there, breathless, shaken, and unexpectedly aware that something irreversible had just begun. Morning light has a way of exposing what the night tries to romanticize. Clara Bennett sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee gone cold, determined to convince herself that the kiss had been nothing more than a reckless moment in the dark. She had handled far worse than an unexpected stranger with confidence in his voice. Still, her fingers hovered over her tablet as she reviewed post-gala reports. Emails flooded her inbox. Thank you notes, invoices, media coverage. One subject line stood out. Press release. Colford Estate announces new owner and visionary sponsor. Clara exhaled slowly and opened it. A polished photograph loaded at the top of the article. The headline praised the estate's revival under the leadership of entrepreneur and investor Ethan Cole. Her breath stopped. The tailored suit. The steady gaze. The quiet intensity. It was him. The stranger in the hallway. The man who kissed her. Ethan Cole. She read quickly now, pulse rising. Reclusive tech investor. Known for acquiring historic properties and transforming them into community hubs. Private, strategic, brilliant. And then the final line struck harder than the rest. Ethan Cole had once been involved in a high-profile business fallout with Nathan Bennett, her brother. Clara leaned back in her chair, the pieces sliding into place with uncomfortable precision. Nathan rarely spoke about the failed venture from years ago, only that a former partner's ambition had cost him everything. The resentment had lingered like a shadow ever since. And now that shadow had a name. Ethan Cole hadn't been just a stranger in the dark. He had known exactly who she was. The realization settled deep in her chest, not as betrayal but as something more complicated. The kiss had not been accidental. It had been deliberate. And Clara couldn't decide whether that made her furious or dangerously curious about why. Clara believed in professionalism. It was the one shield she trusted completely. So when her assistant informed her that Ethan Cole had personally requested her to oversee all upcoming development events at Colford Estate, she did not react outwardly. Inside, however, her composure shifted. Their first official meeting was scheduled for noon in the estate's private conference room. Clara arrived precisely on time, folder in hand, posture steady. She rehearsed a dozen versions of what she might say about the kiss, but decided on none of them. Ethan was already seated when she entered. Daylight suited him differently. Less mysterious, more defined. He stood as she approached, offering a polite nod as if the hallway moment had never happened. "Miss Bennett," he greeted smoothly. "Mr. Cole," she replied with equal precision. They discussed budgets, renovation timelines, and community outreach plans. Their exchange was sharp and efficient, yet charged beneath the surface. Every accidental brush of fingers over shared documents seemed louder than the ticking clock. Finally, Clara closed her folder. "Why did you kiss me?" she asked plainly. Ethan did not look surprised. He leaned back slightly, considering her as if she had just asked the only question that mattered. "I recognized you," he admitted. Her brows drew together. "From where?" "Your brother's graduation," he said quietly. "Years ago. You were the only one in that room who noticed I was standing alone after the deal collapsed. You offered me congratulations anyway." Clara searched her memory, and slowly, faintly remembered a younger version of him. Quieter, watchful. "I never forgot your kindness," he continued. "And when I saw you last night, I didn't see Nathan's sister. I saw you." The sincerity unsettled her more than arrogance would have. "And the kiss?" she pressed. "A moment I didn't want to pretend wasn't real." Silence settled between them, not hostile but heavy with meaning. For the first time, Clara realized this wasn't coincidence. It was history returning, asking for something more. Clara walked out of that meeting with more questions than answers, and a heart far less guarded than she preferred. Professionalism had always been her armor, but Ethan Cole had a way of speaking that slipped past defenses without force. Over the next few weeks, their schedules intertwined by necessity. Site inspections, vendor negotiations, community planning sessions. They moved in sync, sometimes without speaking, understanding each other's expectations with quiet efficiency. Still, Clara refused to let the past, or that kiss, go undefined. One late afternoon, after reviewing renovation blueprints in the estate's library, she finally said what had been building inside her. "You should have told me who you were that night." Ethan didn't deny it. He closed the folder in front of him and met her gaze. "I didn't want my name to decide how you looked at me," he replied calmly. "I wanted one honest moment." She studied him carefully. "And was it?" "Yes." The certainty in his voice left no room for doubt. Clara exhaled slowly. "My brother thinks you ruined his career." Ethan's expression shifted, not defensive but weary. "The investor pulled funding from both of us. I tried to reach Nathan afterward. He never answered." The quiet confession softened something inside her. She saw not the polished entrepreneur from headlines, but a man who had carried misunderstanding for years. "You could have corrected the story publicly," she said. "I didn't want to embarrass him," Ethan answered simply. Pride can wound deeper than loss. The honesty lingered between them. Without thinking too much, Clara stepped closer. Not as a challenge. Not as surrender. Just as acknowledgement. When he opened his arms, it wasn't dramatic. It was steady. She allowed herself to rest there just for a moment. The embrace wasn't urgent or complicated. It was grounding, two people standing in truth instead of assumption. And for the first time since that night in the dark, Clara didn't feel startled. She felt certain that whatever was unfolding between them wasn't reckless. It was real. Secrets rarely stay hidden for long, especially not in families where loyalty runs deep. Nathan Bennett found out on a Tuesday afternoon. Clara had just returned home when she saw his car parked outside her apartment building. Her older brother rarely dropped by unannounced, and the tight line of his jaw when she opened the door told her this wasn't a casual visit. "You're working with Ethan Cole?" Nathan said without preamble. Clara held his gaze. "Yes." His disbelief turned into frustration. Of all the investors in this city, it had to be him? "He owns the estate, Nathan. I was hired to manage the events." "That's not what I meant." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. "You don't know how he operates." Clara folded her arms, steady but calm. "Then tell me." Nathan stopped moving. For a moment, he looked less like the confident businessman she admired and more like the young man who once lost everything overnight. "He outmaneuvered me," Nathan said tightly. "I trusted the wrong investor." Ethan walked away clean. "I didn't." "Did he sabotage you?" Clara asked quietly. Nathan hesitated. That hesitation mattered. "I don't know," he admitted. "But he benefited." Clara thought of Ethan's measured tone, his refusal to criticize Nathan, his willingness to sit down and explain. That didn't align with the villain Nathan described. "He wants to meet you," she said. Nathan's head snapped up. "Why?" "To clear the air." Silence filled the room. "You believe him?" Nathan asked, softer now. "I believe there's more to the story," Clara replied. Later that evening she found Ethan alone on the estate terrace. The sky was painted with fading gold. "My brother knows," she told him. Ethan nodded as if he had expected it. "I won't fight him," he said quietly. "I'll answer him." Clara studied his face, searching for arrogance, finding none. And for the first time she realized this wasn't just about a past business deal. It was about trust. And she was standing in the middle of it. The dinner was set at Colford Estate's long oak table, a place built for celebration but now carrying the weight of unresolved history. Clara sat between the two men, feeling less like a mediator and more like a bridge that might collapse if either side pushed too hard. Nathan arrived guarded, his handshake with Ethan brief and formal. Ethan, composed as ever, did not attempt charm or defense. He simply waited. It was Ethan who spoke first. "The investor who withdrew funding," he began calmly, "had already planned to consolidate both projects under his own firm. We were never meant to succeed independently." Nathan's jaw tightened. "You're saying we were both set up?" "Yes." Ethan slid a folder across the table. Old email records, contract clauses, timelines Clara had never seen. Nathan studied them slowly. The room grew quiet except for the turning of pages. "I tried calling you after the announcement," Ethan continued. "I thought we could fight it together." "I thought you had insider knowledge," Nathan admitted, his voice losing its sharp edge. "You seemed prepared." "I prepared because I suspected instability, not betrayal." The truth didn't arrive dramatically. It settled, piece by piece, like dust finally disturbed after years of stillness. Clara watched her brother's posture shift from accusation to reflection. Pride had built the distance. Misunderstanding had preserved it. Finally Nathan looked up. "If this is true, then we both lost." "Yes," Ethan replied. "But we don't have to keep losing." The tension in the room loosened, not completely gone but softened by clarity. Later that evening, Clara stepped onto the terrace to breathe. She found Ethan there, hands resting lightly on the stone railing. "You didn't defend yourself all these years," she said. "I hoped time would," he answered quietly. She moved closer, not out of obligation but understanding. This time, when she stepped into his arms, it wasn't uncertainty that guided her. It was choice. And for the first time, the past no longer stood between them. The days after the dinner felt lighter, though nothing outwardly dramatic had changed. Colford Estate still buzzed with contractors and planners. Schedules still demanded attention. Yet something unseen had shifted. Nathan had gone quiet, not distant but thoughtful. He requested copies of the documents Ethan had presented and spent evenings reviewing them. Clara didn't push. She understood pride needed space to untangle itself. One afternoon Nathan called her. "You were right," he said simply. "I missed things back then. I was angry. I assumed the worst." Clara closed her eyes in relief. "What will you do?" There was a pause. "I'll talk to him. Properly this time." That conversation happened without her present. When it ended, neither man emerged triumphant, but they shook hands. Not as rivals. As professionals who finally understood the truth. That evening Clara walked the estate grounds alone. The garden lights flickered softly as dusk settled in. She found Ethan near the fountain, sleeves rolled back, reviewing architectural sketches. "It's over," she told him. He looked up. "Over?" The resentment. "Nathan knows." Ethan exhaled slowly, as if releasing years of quiet tension. "I never wanted to stand between you and your family." "You don't?" she said firmly. Silence lingered, not heavy but expectant. Clara stepped closer, her voice softer now. "That night in the hallway. I thought the kiss surprised me." Ethan's expression gentled. "It didn't," she admitted. "It felt familiar. Like I already knew you." He set the sketches aside. "I saw you before you saw me," he said quietly. "But I never approached you. I didn't want my history to complicate your future." "And now?" she asked. "Now I don't want fear to decide anything." Clara reached for his hands. "Then let's not let it." It wasn't a dramatic declaration. It was a decision, steady and mutual. For the first time, she wasn't reacting to a moment. She was choosing it. The gala at Colford Estate had returned, grander than the previous one. Crystal chandeliers hung like captured starlight, reflecting off polished marble floors. Guests arrived in a wave of color and conversation, oblivious to the quiet anticipation building between Clara and Ethan. Clara moved gracefully through the crowd, greeting attendees, double-checking seating arrangements, and ensuring the evening flowed seamlessly. Yet her thoughts kept drifting to the terrace balcony, the very place where everything had begun. She knew he would be there. She knew she wanted him there. Sure enough, as the gala reached its peak, Ethan appeared behind her. His presence was calm, magnetic, impossible to ignore. He gestured toward the balcony. "Shall we step outside for a moment?" Clara hesitated, though only briefly. She allowed herself to follow, letting the crowd and noise fall away until they were alone beneath the open sky, stars above and soft lights twinkling around the garden. She turned to him, a teasing lift of her brow on her lips. "You kissed me?" she whispered, the memory of the first kiss lingering fresh in her mind. "I told you I'd do it again," Ethan replied, a faint, confident smile tugging at his mouth. Clara laughed softly, a sound light with relief and something warmer. She didn't wait. She stepped closer, closing the distance, and kissed him first this time. It was steady, intentional, filled with the promise that had started months ago and had only grown stronger. When they pulled back slightly, Ethan held her hands, his gaze steady and unflinching. "No more secrets," he said. "No more," Clara agreed, her heart full. For the first time, neither history nor hesitation dictated their actions. They simply existed together in that moment, grounded in understanding, trust, and mutual choice. The promise made in darkness had finally returned under the light, and this time, it was theirs to keep. Months passed, and the quiet hum of life at Colford Estate became a rhythm Clara and Ethan both cherished. The estate, once a symbol of past misunderstandings and missed opportunities, now thrived under their shared care. Clara managing the events with her usual precision, Ethan supporting from behind the scenes with steady guidance. Together, they had transformed a place of history into a place of new beginnings. Nathan had grown to respect Ethan, the old tension replaced by cautious admiration. Even Lillian, Clara's best friend, often teased her about how seriously in love she appeared, though Clara would only smile knowingly. Every day felt deliberate, every small interaction infused with trust that had been built slowly, honestly. One quiet evening, the estate's garden was bathed in soft, warm light from strings of lanterns swaying gently in the breeze. Clara walked along the stone path, the faint scent of blooming roses filling the air. Ethan was waiting near the fountain, the place where she had first realized she could trust him. He stepped forward, taking her hands in his eyes reflecting the golden glow around them. "Clara," he said softly, "you've given me more than a second chance at the estate, more than a second chance at trust. You've given me a future. Will you let me build it with you?" Clara felt warmth bloom in her chest, the culmination of months filled with laughter, honesty, and steady moments of connection. She nodded, her voice sure and steady. "Yes, Ethan. I'll build it with you." Ethan smiled, pulling her close into an embrace that needed no words, only certainty. Around them, the estate whispered softly, promises kept, misunderstandings healed, and love chosen. Under the stars, Clara realized something she had always known but only now fully understood. Forever wasn't about perfection or timing or absence of past pain. Forever was about recognition, trust, and the courage to step into it together. And at Colford Estate, Clara and Ethan did exactly that.